Edward Cabrera has been traded to the Chicago Cubs in a massive, massive prospect package. We're going to talk about it. Before we do, make sure you guys are subscribed to The Windup so you don't miss out on any of that content. Again, we're collab posted with Draftneck Mark, with James Shiano. We got you guys all coming in. Subscribe to The Windup. Extra baseball content. We're not going anywhere from our mains. This is just even more. James, we've been waiting on this news. We've been waiting on the prospect package. We got it, and boy, oh boy, is it quite the haul back.
It is quite the haul back, especially considering the fact that Cabrera is a bit of a polarizing pitcher. This is the first time in his career, this being 2025, where he crossed the 100-inning threshold, and he still only got to 137. And this was the first time his ERA was even under 4, and usually it was high 4s or 5s. But at the same time, with a guy like Cabrera with a live arm, the stuff that he has, when you see the adjustments that he was able to make this season as the Marlins modernized their pitching development, and you see the way that instantly led to better results, fewer walks, which was always his biggest problem, you can really squint and see like a game 2 or 3 playoff starter here, and one you'd be pretty happy to have if you were any team in the league.
Going into your diatribe about how great Edward Cabrera is, didn't even get to mention who the prospects were going back to the Marlins yet. Owen Caissie, Cubs top prospect. You also got Cristian Hernandez, who was a former, I believe, number 1 or number 2 money-wise international free agent back in 2021, as well as Edgardo de Leon, who is I think soon turning 19-year-old that played in rookie ball last year. It's a lot back. Owen Caissie being the big prize, but of course, let's talk about Edward Cabrera. That's what everybody's here for. James, you're a huge fan. We know that. You started talking about how good he was before you even got to say what the trade details were. I am definitely on the side of caution with Edward Cabrera, just because we know this stuff's incredible. We know the arm is insanely live. And again, for all the MLB The Show players, you know this guy lived in your nightmare for a full calendar year in Diamond Dynasty. The first half of the year was a complete disaster, but something clicked, it looks like, kind of at the end of June, early July, and that stretch from July 1st to the end of September, Edward Cabrera was one of the better, more productive pitchers in baseball.
So a lot of these changes started to take place for Cabrera more mid-late May. Then they started to come into effect early June, and after that is when he went ballistic. So Edward Cabrera has always been... He's kind of been one of the most polarizing pitchers in baseball over the last few years, because you just watch a guy that throws a 95-mile-an-hour changeup with 2 legit breaking balls. You're like, why are you not good? Like, what's stopping you from being good? The big thing that always stopped Edward Cabrera from being good is just simply getting strike one or throwing strikes in general. He had to fight from behind. When he had to fight from behind, it was less likely to get chases on his nasty breaking stuff. And then when he was less likely to chase his nasty breaking stuff, he had to come in the zone with a 4-seam fastball that didn't have a great movement profile, even though it sat in the upper 90s. So then you just kind of get hit. You're kind of up against it the whole time. He dropped his arm slot early on this season. In dropping the arm slot, he was able to first get some more separation of his breaking balls, just make their movement profiles a little bit different, which was good for differentiating them so he could get him a lot more drop on that curveball especially. Then in doing that, he suddenly just found tons of comfortability with a sinker. That was a big deal for Cabrera because especially against right-handed batters, like he couldn't really just throw strikes to them because his changeup has always been his best pitch, his out pitch. But that's not a pitch that righties like to throw to righties anyway, even if you have one of the best in the league like Cabrera does. When that strike rate and that sinker got to a spot where it was really, really useful now, and we jumped up from about 9% usage last year to about 25% usage this year. I'm just splitting it for batter-handedness splits, even from 12% to 24%. So his usage doubled, became his most thrown pitch against right-handed batters. He figured out how to get strike one. He got more ground balls, and then with that arm slot going down, the separation of that curveball and slider, he just became a monster. And when he was on the mound last year, especially after June 1st, he was truthfully a top 15 pitcher in the game. I understand what you're saying about the consistency, but you can see a monster here.
I can. I mean, he still has such crazy inconsistencies. Because even then, like looking at his game log again, this is being so nitpicky, but this is what I have to do just because I think my caution with Edward Cabrera comes more from a frustration of seeing a guy that has every ability in the world to be, like you said, a top 15 pitcher in the game, but just never really putting it together consistently enough. Like a couple of his best starts, it seems like he might just own the Braves. Like his double digits strikeout starts
and the Mets.
for a total of 15 innings at the end of the year. I think he made an 8-inning start where he shook out 11 and a 7-inning start where he shook out 10. So against the Braves both time in the same month. Like I think that he is going to be a good pitcher, and what's great about this deal for the Cubs, too, is that they've got so much control over him, and I don't think this is an overpay by any means. I think this was a trade that the Cubs had to and should make, but I am a little bit more of a pump the brakes on Edward Cabrera just yet guy, maybe than most.
I'll say this is a counter argument to that, just based on the way we're seeing pitching movement go around the league right now. And we also just saw the Shane Baz trade happen, which also, on the instinct right there, I was like, ooh, this is a lot. you kind of, if you're a team like the Cubs or most teams in the league right now, you kind of have to shoot for the upside because
Yes,
you can get
of course.
relatively comfortable floor on the free agent market. Think about the pitchers we've been talking about in this show and on Met stuff that are available right now for the taking. The guys, first of all, Framber Valdez at the top. Like you want a starting pitcher with a floor. Like Framber Valdez is a rock. Ranger Suarez, Zach Gallen, my boy Zach Littell. Like there are starting pitchers out there where you're like, if I need to eat 170 innings at a 3.8 ERA, I can get that. That's how I get to the dance. But you want a guy like Edward Cabrera, who even just at 27 years old, could be scratching the surface with 3 years of control. You have a lot of time to do your own development with him. And I do think that sometimes we're slow to react to changes in development strength. True. And a team like the Marlins, since Peter Bendix came in, I forgot who their head pitching coach is, but their assistant, Alon Leichman, who just was a great assistant pitching coach, just went to the Rockies this year to lead their pitching dev. Like, they were doing a lot of good for pitchers in the last 18 months. And I think that you saw that with Cabrera this year. So, but again, like you take the shot in a guy that you think could be a menace. And this to me isn't that dissimilar. I'm not comparing these guys' futures to this at all. But in taking the big risk the Phillies took in 2019 with Zach Wheeler and the big risks the Red Sox took last year with Garrett Crochet. I'm not saying that Edward Cabrera will ever be a top 5 pitcher in the league. In fact, I'd wager that he will never be.
Yeah.
But I'd say that there's a good chance he could be a top 25 pitcher in the league over a full season. And you take the risk for that.
I think for the Cubs, too, like now talking about the team construction, the rotation, they so desperately needed a pitcher like Edward Cabrera. Like you mentioned, ceiling. That's what you want Edward Cabrera for, is ceiling. And while we're probably a little more, I don't want to say, what's the opposite of bullish? What's the word?
Bearish.
We're bearish on Cade Horton compared to the rest of baseball fans, it seems like. Because I think we just don't see him as a sub-2 or sub-3 ERA pitcher consistently for his career. Not that he's bad. He's just not going to be a 2.5 ERA guy like he was this past season. Getting a guy like Edward Cabrera, who's got mega velo, something the Cubs basically don't have it anywhere in their rotation, almost anywhere in their entire organization. Getting that mega velo, getting that upside, it's huge. Like this rotation now with Matthew Boyd, Edward Cabrera, Cade Horton, Shota, Jameson Taillon, and still being able to hang on to Jackson Wiggins, who's their big pitching prospect in their system, who's a piece. This is really, really good for the Cubs. And when you look at what they did in the playoffs last year, like one of the big concerns with that team was like, who's going to pitch? Who's going to be a starting pitcher? I know Justin Steele's going to come back from injury too, but they didn't really have that prototypical ace-type guy. And while Edward Cabrera still has work to do, I think there's a world where he can definitely be the ace of this rotation.
Oh, 100%. Again, after May 1st last year, 2.95 ERA, and just to get the strikeout rate quickly, 27% strikeout rate and 8% walk rate. Like that is the complete makings of an elite starting pitcher. Like I said before, someone who you can see touching top 20 starting pitcher. And you were dead on. The fact that this Cubs rotation, they have major league depth. They probably still wish they had they probably still will get 1 or 2 more depth pieces, but just
maybe I don't know because like right now in their bullpen they still have Javier Assad, who's like showing he can be.
I forgot about Assad.
They have Colin Ray, who they seem to like.
And Justin Steele will be back in June or July.
Yes.
So this is now, and it's funny now looking back at the Cubs from where they were in midseason last year when they first tried to acquire Edward Cabrera. And we also have report from Bruce Levine, who was all over this trade, that Caissie was who the Marlins wanted last trade deadline, and the Cubs balked at that. And then it's funny, because Edward Cabrera was dealing with a poorly timed injury in the moment, but this lineup is now the thing that needs help if you're the Cubs.
Yeah, and even like they still have Ben Brown, they still have Jordan Wicks too, who will be all those depth guys. Like I think starting pitching wise, they're probably done. But yes, this lineup is where the Cubs lack a little punch right now. Like Michael Busch, I think is very good. I think we're all believers in Michael Busch as a player. Pete Crow's great because he can play center field as well as he does and have some power. Seiya is a beast, but like this lineup is filled with a lot of like league average hitters, and where they can really take that next jump forward is being able to get like one more plus bat in this lineup. Almost like, if they had Kyle Tucker, that could be the piece.
Oh, Kyle Tucker would be the exact missing piece for this club. They've also been weirdly connected to both Bo Bichette and Alex Bregman. It's also weird. Yes, that report, Ken Rosenthal's ran with that one a few times. Also a report that Nico Horner is available in a trade just based on, I guess, the value of infield defense around the league. I don't really buy that. I think these guys love Nico Horner. I think he's a great fit for that club.
Too. He's a good ball player.
He's a good ball player, but this is a good team by the Cubs. And again, I think a worthwhile risk when you're trading prospects who, first off, Owen Caissie, who is an exciting prospect talent-wise, but definitely a flawed player, but one I still think has tons of potential, and we'll get to talk about him in a second. Cristian Hernandez, who never came through on his potential, and a teenager. Like, that's that's a trade I think a lot of teams in the league would be willing to make in the situation the Cubs were in, for what their rotation needed.
Yeah, and I know like the big thing has been that the Yankees weren't even close or never particularly close, and it's probably because like it seems like if you're the Marlins, it was like Jason Dominguez and maybe like a couple of your other lower level prospects.
Well, the Yankees probably started coming with Spencer Jones, and then the Marlins were like, "Come on, guys,
Yeah, like
we can't be doing
I
this.
take the 26-year-old.
Not right now." And Caissie is again, he's major league ready adjacent. Like he spent almost 1,000 plate appearances in AAA over the last 2 years. And this past year before he was promoted, he got his swinging strike rate AAA down below 12%. That's not exactly great, but that's a fairly good swing strike rate for a guy like Caissie who could have actually literally some of the best raw power in the entire league.
Yeah, I hate to be really lazy. I guess we'll start talking about the Marlins' perspective from this now. First off, cashing in on the height of Edward Cabrera. Pretty smart. I think they got a bunch back for him, which is really good. But, like, lazy take. They just did this with Kyle Stowers. They took a guy who swung the bat hard when he made contact. The contact was good exit velos, hard contact in the air, and you just make a few tweaks. Like looking at what Kyle Stowers did in 2024 in terms of his percentile rankings, he was a guy who chased a lot, whiffed a lot, struck out a lot. Owen Caissie at the major league level, granted in a tiny, tiny sample, and even what we see in AAA, chases a lot, whiffs a lot, strikes out a lot, but swings the bat hard, and when he makes contact, it's phenomenal contact.
Yeah, and I'm wondering also about Kyle Stowers, just looking into it real quick. It's actually very similar swing speed and swing length.
Yep.
The Marlins also were able to coax more bat speed out of Kyle Stowers after an offseason in their program while slightly decreasing his swing length, which is amazing because you generate more force with your bat speed along your swing. So if you're increasing your bat speed while decreasing your swing length, you've done something like with your body to get faster and stronger. So if there's a similar adjustment that can come from Caissie, like there's a 35 homer bat here pretty easily. It's an extreme swing and miss profile with Owen Caissie. For what we saw in the major leagues, again, we saw in AAA, leads us to believe that he could probably get this in check at some point and again be a starting caliber player, but it would be similar to Stowers where you're looking at a 30% strikeout rate at the major league level where you would need the power to shine through immensely.
Yeah, and I totally think it can. Like people like you go back a couple years, he was like some people's favorite prospects in the minors just because of what he can do.
Oh, he was a second round pick prep bat of the Padres. He was part of which trade?
Canadian. He might play for Team Canada in the WBC.
Which trade was he? Padres to Cubs.
Padres to Cubs. He was.
Was it you? Was it Darvish?
I don't think it was for you.
Give me a check real quick.
I'm gonna give you a check. I can't really think right now.
Also, like when the second you saw Caissie in this trade, again, the fact that as Bruce Levine reported, he was what the Marlins wanted at the trade deadline. My mind immediately started to think about where other teams would have had to go for this. Was it you?
That was 5 years ago. I forgot about that. Holy crap.
It was you, right?
Yeah, it was you, Darvish, and Victor Caratini.
Nice.
For Ismael Mena, Reginald Preciado, and wow, Zach Davies was in this trade. Holy shit.
Reginald Preciado. You're just really sending me back to prospect line. But again, this is why you trade your prospects, because there's guys like Reginald Preciado who gets moved for many good years of you, Darvish, which is what Edward Cabrera could be here. I mean, not going to compare those two guys, very different. But Caissie's just a fun guy to bet on. It's clear the Marlins wanted a near major league ready, probably outfielder. I guess I'm sure they wouldn't have been
an outfielder. Yeah.
I know he's going to be an outfielder, but I'm sure
okay.
they were seeking an outfielder just because of what they have in their team right now. Like this pushes, now the ball talk's beginning, guys. This pushes Edgardo Hernandez back to a bench role, short side platoon with Caissie. Like this now leaves. I mean, there's always going to be the question of whether Augustine Ramirez is going to be the catcher first or DH, whether it's going to push guys like Griffin Conine and Graham Pauley, who got some time last year and looked decent.
Low-key love Griffin Conine. That's my guy this year.
Oh, Griffin Conine has some good bat speed. But again, the Marlins keep making trades like this where they just keep getting pieces where I'm like, I like that piece. I do like Caissie.
It's because they're just the Rays now. This is what the Marlins are turning into. They got Peter Bendix, and he's doing all the things that he did when he was with the Rays, now with the Marlins. And you can literally see it with the guys that they're going after. They do these things that if it all comes together, you can get extreme value out of players. You can get really, really good production, like you saw with Kyle Stowers. Swung the bat hard. When he made contact, he hit the ball hard.
Isaac Paredes, once upon a time, very similar trade with the Rays, where the first cup of coffee in Detroit didn't go well, goes to the Rays, adjustment makes it happen.
Like Jacob Marcy being a super freak athlete and now being able to be a lockdown center fielder for them.
And it's a good lesson for Marlins fans everywhere, about patience with new executives, to implement their systems, get their players. When the Marlins traded Luis Arias for what felt like scraps at the time, people were up in arms that the Marlins were tearing down from a playoff team. A lot of air quotes going on with me right now. But you get one guy like Jacob Marcy in that trade, and you have...
It's a win.
It's not even a win. It's a win of absolutely gigantic proportions. And now it's like you actually have the semblance of a team. These were my Marlins, and now losing Cabrera, I think is probably less. I mean, again, I guess less likely they go in a playoff run this year, but also like
their pitching is definitely bizarre now.
I mean, if Robbie Snelling shows up and Ryan Weathers stays healthy, like this is still a legit rotation.
Yeah, and if the Queen had balls, she'd be king.
Well, I mean, that's not what we're saying right now. Like
you said, if Ryan Weathers stays healthy, he's almost never done that.
No, he's never stayed healthy. But again, but also was if Robbie Snelling can show up, and Robbie Snelling just dominated AAA, and he looks like he has all the stuff to be a major league starting pitcher. Like it's fun. And Cristian Hernandez also, again, maybe the guy who once made $3 million as a teenager, like you can now coax something out of him in his early 20s, where he hasn't really hit much yet in the minor leagues. It's just my favorite line in this show this winter. This is a square ass deal.
Square ass deal.
Square ass deal.
I also just want to note about this Edgardo De Leon guy. He put up some really good numbers in rookie ball as an 18-year-old. He's shown some good power. I saw like one swing of his where he takes one of the most violent swings and pimps that I've ever seen as a 17-year-old. I like it. Like, again, let's fuck around and have some fun with like the 19-year-old kid who's going to be an A-ball next year. Let's see what he's got.
No, just a lot of just chaos out there. Also some fun reporting that came out of this trade. First of all, it went like 5 hours before it was official.
So
apparently, a pretty extensive medical review, which makes sense because Cabrera has dealt with some injuries, including some arm stuff recently. So it's fair that the Cubs want to check into that. But in this, a quick little aside, Bruce Levine, who again was all over this, he said that last year the Cubs had a deal in place for Jesus Luzardo from the Marlins that was nixed because of a medical. And that's a crazy little tidbit they just throw in on a Wednesday afternoon in January.
That's good old fun. It's good reporting right there. That's journalism.
And shout out Michael Cerami. He was first to this deal.
Absolutely locked in. That's a good offseason for the Cubs. It's a good move. And I think for the Marlins, you got the value that you wanted from Edward Cabrera. I don't know how much better you could have done. And for a lot of teams, it was a tough package to give up. But for the Cubs, who have a completely full outfield, this makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, like the Yankees weren't giving up Jason Dominguez. I think Dominguez and Caissie. Some of you guys may yell at me if this kind of profile, not that dissimilarly at this exact given moment. And Caisie's a better defender in the corner outfield. Probably also has more raw power. But for the Mets, this probably profiled as a guy like Ryan Clifford, but he's much less of a sure thing and much less of a defensive fit than Caissie.
I'm trying to think
like Caissie over Clifford still.
Yeah, or like his obviously bench. This wasn't happening. I'm trying to think of some of the
other
other
wasn't
teams
even close.
that were. Who else was linked to Edward Cabrera?
It was the Yankees. It was the Mets. There was the Red Sox.
The Red Sox, that would have been like
a sell low on Christian Campbell, but I think Christian Campbell still covers.
Yeah, I don't think the Red Sox
I don't know.
moved him.
I mean, maybe it was something like Jostin Garcia, but they already moved him, and he probably also was a little bit below. But if the Marlins
I think he's a good chunk below.
Yeah, if the Marlins wanted a major league caliber, close to major, like maybe probably actually asked for Wilyer or Jarren Duran, but they probably could have given more like that. If what they wanted was a major league caliber power hitter, like Caissie was just a good fit.
Yep, and like you said, square ass deal.
Square ass deal.
All right, that's what we got for you guys. That's the Edward Cabrera trade. Thank you for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to The Windup. We appreciate all of the amazing support. You can follow James on social media at
James Shiano.
I'm Giraffe Neck Mark. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.